The ceremonial blade pressed against Marcus Cole's throat, and he didn't flinch. 300 Velithari nobles watched in absolute silence as High Commander Sireth held the obsidian edge steady, waiting for the human to break. Marcus kept his eyes forward, fixed on the empty throne at the far end of the crystalline hall, refusing to give them the satisfaction. "You dare petition for sanctuary," Sireth hissed, his silver-scaled face inches from Marcus's, "when your species cannot even hold a single colony world." "With respect, Commander," Marcus said quietly. "We held Kepler-7 for 6 years. Against the Dominion. We only lost it because no one answered our distress calls." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Sireth's grip tightened on the blade. Insolence. Truth. The blade drew a thin line of blood. Marcus didn't move. He'd survived the fall of Kepler-7. He'd watched his wife burn with the colony. He'd drifted for 3 months in a damaged escape pod before a Velithari patrol found him. Death didn't scare him anymore. Nothing did. Enough. The voice cut through the hall like winter wind. Every Velithari dropped to one knee instantly, including Sireth. Marcus remained standing. He didn't know the protocol, and frankly, he was too exhausted to care. Queen Velithra descended from a side passage he hadn't noticed. She moved like something between a dancer and a predator, her pale blue skin luminescent under the crystal lights, her ceremonial robes trailing behind her like liquid shadow. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with features that were almost human but sharper, more angular, as if someone had tried to carve a human woman from ice and starlight. She stopped 3 paces from Marcus and studied him with eyes that held no warmth. "You are bleeding on my floor, human. Apologies, Your Majesty. I didn't bring the blade." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, perhaps, or irritation. The nobles held their breath. "You do not kneel. I don't know how your people kneel. I'd rather stand and show respect than kneel and show ignorance." Silence stretched between them. Then Velithra turned to Sireth, still prostrate on the ground. "Rise, Commander. Explain why you've drawn blood in my hall without my permission." Sireth stood, his scales flushing darker. "The human demanded sanctuary, my queen. He has nothing to offer. No fleet, no resources, no connections. He is worthless." "I didn't demand," Marcus said. "I asked. There's a difference." Velithra's gaze returned to him. "And what would you offer for sanctuary, human? What do you have?" Marcus considered the question. He had nothing. His ship was scrap. His people were scattered refugees across a dozen systems. His wife was ash. His homeworld was 3 generations of faster-than-light travel away, and wanted nothing to do with the colonies. "Labor," he said finally. "I can work. I'm an engineer. I can fix things." Laughter erupted from the nobles. Low, cruel, dismissive. Sireth's smile showed too many teeth. "We have machines for labor, human. We have engineers born to castes higher than your entire species." "Then I have nothing," Marcus said. "But I'm asking anyway." Velithra raised one hand and the laughter stopped instantly. "Leave us." Sireth's eyes widened. "My queen, protocol demands. Leave. Us." The command left no room for argument. The nobles filed out in rigid formation, Sireth last, his gaze promising violence when they met again. The great doors sealed with a sound like a tomb closing. Velithra circled Marcus slowly, studying him from every angle. He stood still, letting her look. "You are not afraid," she said finally. "No. Why? I've already lost everything, Your Majesty. Fear requires something left to lose." She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns in her skin, like frost forming on glass. "My advisors will demand I execute you for the insult you've shown today. Probably. You're not going to apologize. For what? Telling the truth? Standing when I didn't know to kneel, bleeding on your floor?" He shook his head. "I'll apologize for genuine offenses, but I won't apologize for existing." Velithra was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm coming to your room tonight." Marcus's heart stopped. What? You will be given quarters in the Eastern Wing, basic accommodations. Tonight, after the 3rd moon rises, I will come to you. We will speak privately." Her expression gave nothing away. "Tell no one. If you do, I will deny it, and you will be executed for slander against the crown." "Why?" Marcus managed. "Because you are the first person in 11 years to stand in my presence and speak without calculating advantage." She turned away, robes sweeping across the blood-stained floor. "Do not mistake this for affection, human. I am curious. Nothing more." The doors opened. Guards entered to escort him away. As Marcus was led from the hall, he caught one last glimpse of the queen standing alone before her empty throne, and for just a moment, he thought he saw something in her posture that he recognized. Loneliness. The quarters were sparse. A bed, a table, a window overlooking an alien garden of crystalline plants. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and waited, unsure if he was anticipating an interrogation, an assassination, or something stranger. The third moon rose, casting blue-white light across the room. A section of the wall slid open silently. Galithra stepped through, alone, wearing simpler robes than before. Without the ceremonial weight, she looked smaller, more real. "You're actually here," Marcus said. "You doubted me?" I considered the possibility that this was an elaborate test to see if I'd try to escape. The corner of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "And if it were, then I'd fail it, because I have nowhere to go." She moved to the window, looking out at the garden. In the moonlight, the crystalline plants sang softly, a sound like distant wind chimes. "How did your wife die?" The question hit him like a blade. Marcus took a breath. "When the Dominion broke through our orbital defense, they didn't invade. They just burned everything from orbit. She was in the agricultural sector, trying to coordinate evacuations. I was in the engine room of the last transport trying to keep it running long enough to break atmosphere." He stared at his hands. "I got out. She didn't. Do you blame yourself? Every day?" Velithra turned from the window. "Among my people, survivors of great loss are considered cursed, touched by ending. To associate with them is to invite misfortune. So I'm bad luck on top of being worthless, according to tradition, yes. And you're here anyway." She sat in the single chair studying him. "My consort died 11 years ago. A plague that swept through the noble houses. I survived. He did not." Her voice was flat, practiced, as if she'd said these words many times. "Since then, I am considered cursed. The nobles tolerate me because I am competent, and the succession is complex. But no one touches me. No one stands close. No one speaks to me without calculation. Until me. Until you. A human with nothing to lose who doesn't know our superstitions." She leaned back. "It is... what? Novel, IG." Marcus considered this. "So you're not curious about humans. You're curious about anyone who'll actually talk to you. Perhaps." She paused. "You are perceptive. I'm engineer. We troubleshoot. Find root causes." He met her eyes. "You're lonely, Your Majesty. Queens are not lonely. Queens are isolated by necessity and design. That's not a denial." Velithra looked away. The silence stretched. "My people believe that emotional expression is weakness," she said finally. "That control is virtue. I have been controlled my entire life. Perfectly composed. Perfectly appropriate." Her hands tightened in her lap. "I am exhausted, human. More tired than I knew it was possible to be." Marcus stood slowly. He walked to the window, giving her space, and looked out at the singing crystals. "On the transport, when we were escaping Kepler 7, there was a moment when the engines failed. We were falling back toward the atmosphere. Everyone was screaming." He touched the glass. "I remember thinking how strange it was that after everything, the siege, the bombardment, losing Sarah, what finally scared me was the silence when the engines cut. Not the dying. The quiet before it. What happened? I fixed the engines. Barely. We made it to orbit with about 30 seconds of fuel left." He turned back to her. "My point is, I understand tired. I understand being so exhausted that dying seems simpler than continuing. But I also understand that sometimes you fix the engine anyway, because there are people depending on you." Velithra was quiet for a long time. "You did not fix the engine for yourself? No? For the 47 people in the cargo hold? And now? What keeps you functioning now?" Marcus thought about it. "Honestly? Nothing. I've been going through the motions, waiting for something to give me a reason." He shrugged. "Maybe that's why I asked for sanctuary here. Maybe I was hoping your people would give me a purpose or kill me. Either way, resolution. That is deeply sad. It's honest." Velithra stood. She walked toward him, stopping an arm's length away. This close, he could see that her eyes had flecks of silver in the blue, like distant stars. "The nobles will not accept you. Sireth will push for your execution. You have perhaps 3 days before the council convenes to decide your fate," I figured. "I could intervene, grant you protection under the crown." She paused. "It would cost me politically. They would see it as weakness, sentiment. A cursed queen protecting a cursed human. Then don't. I'm not worth a political crisis. That is for me to decide, not you. Her voice sharpened. Do not make the mistake of valuing yourself through their eyes, human. You asked for sanctuary without leverage, stood without kneeling, and bled without flinching. Among my people, those would be considered acts of profound stupidity. But I am beginning to wonder if they are something else. What? Courage? Or perhaps integrity? I am not certain we have words for it. She moved past him toward the hidden door. Tomorrow, you will be summoned to serve in the engineering caste as a provisional laborer. It is beneath your skills, but it will keep you alive while I determine what to do with you. Thank you. She paused at the threshold. Do not thank me yet, Marcus Cole. I have not decided if you are useful or merely interesting. The difference matters considerably to your survival. The door slid closed behind her. Marcus sat back on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time, trying to understand what had just happened. A queen had come to his room, shared her loneliness, and offered him a temporary stay of execution. For the first time in months, he felt something other than emptiness. He wasn't sure what to call it, but it felt dangerously close to hope. The engineering caste worked in the lowest levels of the palace complex, where the great machines that powered the Velithari capital hummed in eternal rhythm. Marcus was assigned to maintenance, cleaning filtration systems, replacing worn components, carrying tools for the actual engineers. It was degrading. It was exhausting. It was exactly what he'd asked for. The other workers ignored him. Not with hostility, but with the complete indifference reserved for things beneath notice. He was furniture. Background. Invisible. He found he didn't mind. 3 weeks passed. Marcus learned the rhythms of the palace, the unspoken hierarchies, the way information flowed through the caste system like water through channels. He learned which supervisors were fair, and which were cruel, which sections were well maintained, and which were held together by luck and improvisation. And he learned that the Queen's systems were failing. The power regulation in the Eastern Wing, her wing, was unstable. Minor fluctuations barely noticeable, but Marcus recognized the pattern. He'd seen it before on Kepler 7 in the months before the infrastructure collapse that had weakened their defenses. He filed a report through proper channels. It disappeared. He filed another. Same result. On the 4th week, he broke protocol. The Queen's private garden was forbidden to all but her personal staff. Marcus slipped through a maintenance access during the 3rd shift, when the guards changed rotations, and found her among the singing crystals. She was sitting on a bench, alone, still dressed in formal robes from some ceremony. She looked exhausted. You should not be here, she said without turning. The power regulation in your wing is failing. I filed reports. They're being ignored. Now she turned. You risked execution to tell me about engineering problems. I risk execution because someone's deliberately burying the reports, and that means someone wants your systems to fail. That's not an engineering problem. That's a threat. Velithra was silent for a long moment. Show me. They moved through the maintenance corridors together, the Queen following a human laborer through the guts of her own palace. Marcus showed her the readings, the patterns, the signs of deliberate neglect disguised as wear. Cyreth controls the Engineering Oversight Committee, Velithra said quietly. I know. You're suggesting he's trying to kill me. I'm suggesting the evidence points that direction. What you do with it is above my pay grade. She touched one of the degraded components, her expression unreadable. If I accuse him without proof, he'll claim I'm paranoid, cursed, unfit. She pulled her hand back. If I do nothing, eventually something will fail catastrophically. There's a third option, which is, fix it quietly. Document everything. Build a case. Marcus met her eyes. I can do the repairs myself, off schedule. No one notices maintenance workers. By the time he realizes the sabotage isn't working, you'll have evidence of what he was trying to do. That would take months. I'm not going anywhere. Velithra studied him. You would do this. For a queen who has offered you only provisional survival. I'd do it because it's the right thing to do. He paused. And because you talk to me like a person, not a piece of furniture. That's worth something. Among my people, it would be worth nothing. Good thing I'm not your people. Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth exactly, but something adjacent to it. Recognition. You are a strange creature, Marcus Cole. I've been told. She reached out and touched his hand. Brief, feather-light, barely contact at all. But among a people who believe touch transferred curse and fortune alike, it was profound. Begin the repairs, she said. I will ensure you have access. She turned and walked away through the crystal garden, leaving Marcus alone with the sound of singing plants and the echo of her touch on his skin. The months blurred together. Marcus worked double shifts, his assigned duties during the day, the secret repairs at night. He documented everything. The sabotaged components, the falsified maintenance logs, the chain of authority that led inevitably to Sirith's oversight committee. And in the spaces between, there was Velithra. She came to him irregularly, unpredictably, always through hidden passages, and always alone. They talked. About her world, and his. About politics and engineering. About the colony he'd lost, and the consort she'd mourned. She never touched him again after that first time. But she sat closer. Spoke softer. Let silences stretch without filling them. Marcus found himself looking forward to her visits with an intensity that frightened him. He told himself it was just loneliness. Just the human need for connection after so long isolated. He almost believed it. The crisis came on a night when three things happened at once. Sirith's agents discovered the repairs. The council convened an emergency session. And the Queen's power systems failed anyway. Not the ones Marcus had fixed, but a secondary grid that nobody had known was compromised. Marcus was arrested in his quarters and dragged before the council in chains. The chamber was packed. Every noble house, every caste leader, everyone who mattered in the Velithari hierarchy. Sirith stood at the prosecution's position, his scales bright with triumph. The human has been found in restricted areas of the palace, Sirith announced. He has tampered with critical systems. He has conducted unauthorized repairs. And we have evidence, he produced a data crystal, that he has been meeting secretly with the Queen herself. Gasps. Whispers. Scandalized looks directed at Velithra, who sat motionless on her throne. I accuse him of espionage, Sirith continued. Of assassination, attempt. And I accuse Her Majesty of complicity, of allowing her judgment to be clouded by association with a cursed human. The repairs I made, Marcus said clearly, prevented system failures that would have killed everyone in the Eastern Wing. Including the Queen. Convenient claim. Impossible to verify. Actually, it's very easy to verify. Check my documentation against the original maintenance logs. Someone's been falsifying records for months. Someone with access to the Engineering Oversight Committee. Sirith's smile didn't waver, but his scales darkened slightly. The word of a human against a high commander? The council is not that foolish. Then don't take my word. Marcus looked directly at Velithra. Take hers. The Queen rose. I have reviewed the documentation Marcus Cole compiled. It is thorough, accurate, and damning. She descended from the throne, each step deliberate. It shows a pattern of deliberate sabotage beginning 3 months after my consort's death. It shows falsified inspections, ignored warnings, and a systematic effort to create conditions in which my death would appear accidental. Sirith's composure cracked. Your Majesty, you cannot possibly believe. I believe evidence, Commander. I believe documentation. I believe the testimony of a man who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward. She stopped at the center of the chamber. I believe that you have been planning my assassination for 11 years, waiting for the right moment, the right method, the right scapegoat. This is madness. The curse has taken her mind. There is no curse. Velithra's voice rang through the chamber. There is only grief and isolation, and the cruelty of those who use superstition to justify abandonment. She turned to face the assembly. I have been alone for 11 years. Untouched. Unheard. Unseen as anything but a symbol. And in that loneliness I nearly missed the threat growing in my own court. She looked at Marcus. Still in chains. Still bleeding from where the guards had been rough. This human saw me. Not the crown. Not the curse. Me. He risked his life to protect mine. Not because I commanded it. Not because he sought reward. But because she paused. Seeming to search for words. Because he believed it was right. Because he has more integrity in his smallest act than this entire court has shown in 11 years. Your Majesty. Sirith's voice was desperate now. You cannot elevate a human above. I can do whatever I choose. I am the Queen. She gestured, and her personal guards moved forward. Sirith was seized before he could react. High Commander Sirith, you are stripped of rank and title. You will be confined pending full investigation. If the evidence supports the charges, and I believe it will, you will face execution for treason. As Sirith was dragged away, screaming protests that echoed off the crystal walls, Velithra walked to where Marcus knelt. Release him. The chains fell away. Marcus stood slowly, every muscle aching. You saved me, Velithra said quietly, so only he could hear. Again. I just showed you what was there. You saved yourself. Perhaps. She reached up and touched his face, in full view of the assembled court, in full violation of every tradition that had kept her isolated. Perhaps that is what I needed. Someone to show me I was worth saving. The nobles stared in shock, some in horror. Few, perhaps those who had also chafed under Sireth's influence, with something that might have been approval. "This will cause problems," Marcus murmured. "Yes, they'll say you've lost your mind, that the curse has taken you, that you're not fit to rule. Some will." She lowered her hand but didn't step back. "Others will see a queen who refused to die quietly, who found an ally in an unexpected place, who chose connection over isolation. And what do you see?" Velithro was quiet for a moment. "I see a beginning," she said finally. "I see possibility. I see," she hesitated, "I see someone I would like to know better. Someone I would like to stand beside me, not as servant or tool, but as—" She trailed off, uncertain. "As what? I don't know yet." She met his eyes. "Among my people, this would be the moment for a declaration. A formal statement of intention. But I find that I am tired of formality. Tired of performance." She took a breath. "I would like to discover what we are together. Without expectation. Without protocol. Can you accept that?" Marcus thought about Sarah. About loss. About the long months of emptiness that had followed. He thought about hope, and how dangerous it was, and how necessary. "I can accept that," he said. Around them the court erupted in arguments and accusations, and the chaos of a political order reshaping itself. Guards escorted stunned nobles. Advisors scrambled to understand the new reality. The future of the Velithari Empire hung in uncertain balance. But in the center of it all, a cursed queen and a grieving human stood together, not touching, not declaring, simply present with each other. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't guaranteed happiness. It was fragile and uncertain and fraught with complications. It was enough. It was a beginning.